What's up, college football fans? Welcome back to an all-new episode of the Cover 2 College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Smithson, joined, as always, by my co-host, the Okie Longhorn himself, Dalt. As usual, first and foremost, how we doing today, buddy?
Doing great, man. What a just amazing weekend of football. We had a lot of really good games. We had a lot of really good outcomes. I know get into these picks and kind of a tough weekend for you, but it's a long season.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but
Oh, we're going to talk about it.
Uh, yeah. So we had our first weekend of picks. Me, you, BP. He was on last week. Obviously, made his picks. He did the best of us. So maybe the guy that isn't even a host on the podcast needs to have his own podcast because I went 0-6. Just gonna say it. It was bad. I think that's the first time ever for either of us. So you know, you can either stay down, Dalton, or you can get back up off the mat and we got some games to pick this week and see how we do. You went what 4-2, which this is including our super dog picks. So yeah, not a great weekend for me on the. All I can say, it's a good thing that I actually don't put money on these games. Otherwise, I would have lost a lot this weekend. Would not have been good. But yeah, we got these 5 games that we talked about last week. We're going to kind of recap those, and then we'll get right into our week 2 preview. Got 5 more, probably not quite as good of a slate this week, but it's not bad. Definitely some big games for sure, but this opening week it was a good one, and some of these games actually turned out to not be as good as we both and even BP thought that they would be. Um, we do have a new AP poll. Not going to talk about that. We talked about that just before we got on. We typically read the AP poll, but it's just
I don't think anybody cares.
yeah. I mean, we talked about the rankings yesterday, and I talked about how stupid I think the preseason rankings are. Like, I don't understand why you rank teams before you even see them play. I get it's just something for the pundits and media to talk about. But yeah, we got 5 games. We won't really recap our super dog picks. We'll just say how we did on those. But our if you want to get right into this week 1 recap, Dalt, we can touch on these games, and then we'll take that right into our week 2 preview. So I guess first game that we picked was Penn State, West Virginia, and this was not a win for either of us. BP got this one. He took Penn State. Penn State. This was kind of a strange game. It started off kind of wild. It had some turnovers. Not really a lot of back and forth, but it looked early on, Dalton, like West Virginia was kind of looked like they were kind of going to hang in there with Penn State. They were making some plays, doing some good things. And then you had the weather delay, which you would have thought would have helped West Virginia being at home, but it did not. And Penn State goes on to win this game, 34-12. They do cover the -8 that we picked that game at. Me and you both took West Virginia here. I called my shot on this one. I said West Virginia was going to beat Penn State. I didn't think they were just going to cover. I thought they were going to win this game. So hats off to Penn State, James Franklin, going in there, tough road environment, and even a weirder situation with the delay. But what were your thoughts on this game, Dalt?
The question going into this season has been all about how is Drew Aller going to look with the new offensive coordinator they got from Kansas. Everybody talks about how explosive they were or the big plays or how good he looked. He was 11 for 17 for 216 yards. He did have 3 touchdowns. I think the biggest deal was they found a way to get Singleton to be more explosive in the run game. I know last year he didn't have a touchdown, or he didn't have a run over 40 yards all year, and he had a touchdown run of over 40 yards. So my thing is West Virginia did not play good enough to be within this game. They played pretty sloppy. There was a lot of miscues, a lot of penalties. They didn't really push what we thought was going to be an okay defensive front from Penn State, but we didn't think that they were going to hold Donaldson to under 50 yards. But all in all, you gotta tip your hat. I really thought the two games that I missed this weekend were because I wanted Penn State to be bad. I can't get behind the hype of James Franklin being a top tier coach. And now Penn State's probably going to make a run to where they go 11-1, 10-2 and get in the playoff and lose their biggest games. So, I mean, it is what it is. I think the offense looks better. The defense looks capable. I just feel like West Virginia shot themselves in the foot way too early. And the big no offensive pass interference call before the half was crushing for West Virginia.
Yeah.
I mean, that was going to be a 7-point game going into the half, and then all of a sudden you pop that big no call pass interference, and then the next play they score. So, I mean, makes it a 14-point game instead of a 7-point game at the half.
Yeah. You had I'm trying to remember how exactly it happened, but, Penn State had the bad snap. Drew Aller snaps it kind of off his lower leg, and West Virginia recovers. And it's like, okay, we got some momentum. I can't remember. I think it was still.
That was like the second drive of the game.
I think the game was still scoreless at this moment. So you thought, okay, West Virginia may be able to get some momentum here. What do? The very next play with the first snap, they send a guy in motion in the backfield, and the center snaps it off of his hip, and it goes 15 yards into the backfield, and Penn State recovers. So they give the ball right back to Penn State. Like you said, that play just before half, the no call, I think was obvious pass interference on the Penn State wide receiver, clear push off. I'm not going to say that decided the game, but that was huge as far as momentum was concerned. Because it would have been 13-6 at halftime, and instead it was 20-6, which the game was still obviously in reach. So it wasn't like it made it, but Penn State got the ball after halftime. So that was a huge momentum swing for Penn State to get that. And we both talked about Penn State, Dalt, and kind of our hang up on them, not just James Franklin, but also Drew Aller. I mean, I said on the episode last week that I just don't. Drew Aller's going to have to really show me something to believe in him. And even I know a lot of people talked about some of the throws that he made in this game, and he looked fine, but it wasn't like he just lit the world on fire. I mean, the guy was 11 for 17, just over 200 yards. He did have 3 touchdown passes, but I mean, it isn't like he just went out there and did something incredible. But I just, man, you got to feel for Neil Brown in West Virginia. The year that he had last year after being on the hot seat, coming into this game, there was so much buildup. They had McAfee's show on campus on Friday. Big noon kickoff was there Saturday morning. A lot of people thought West Virginia might win this game, and they just couldn't get it done. I thought Garrett Green would do a little bit more than he did. You had the kid from West Virginia. He got hurt, the running back, which they have a kind of a 2-back system there, so that didn't just kill him. But I got to give flowers to Penn State. They go on the road, tough environment. We both know, being former Big 12 members, that's a tough place to play in Morgantown. Probably a little tougher at night, but I think we can both agree the crowd was ready for that game. And then the delay kind of takes them out of it a little bit. But nevertheless, Penn State not only wins, they do cover the -8, Dalt. So this was a loss for both of us. You have to imagine, like you said, this is kind of a springboard for Penn State. This was one of the games on their schedule that a lot of people thought was one of the tougher 2 or 3 games that they'd play this year, outside of Ohio State and I think one other game in the Big Ten. So Penn State, as far as playoffs concerned, looking good right now. Obviously, we're only 1 week into it. West Virginia's season's certainly not over. We'll see. So this was a loss for both of us, Dalt. You got anything else on this game, or you want to move on?
We can move on.
All right, this next one, there's a little bit to talk about, but the game itself, not great. Georgia defeats Clemson 34-3. This was I had heard it on a podcast, and I kind of mentioned it last week, Dalt. I said you might look up and see the score to this game, 27-6 or whatever. And that turned out to be true. It was 27-3. And you kind of look at the score and you're like, I even said it, I think, like Georgia didn't just look spectacular to me.
No.
Like they're obviously very good. I'm not taking anything away from Georgia, but to me, they didn't just look like, oh my goodness, like they're unbelievable again. Like go ahead and give them the championship, like stuff like that. Like, how bad they beat Oregon in that week 1 game a few years ago. It wasn't really that kind of game. But you took Georgia here, right? Minus 13.5.
Yep.
So I took Clemson, and as usual, shocking surprise that it is, Dalt. Clemson lets me down. What do you think of this game, Dalt? I know there's really what's going on in Clemson. I mean,
it's a tale of two halves. It really is. You get, this is a 6-0 game at halftime.
Yeah.
And what it really boils down to is the fact that Clemson played great on defense in the first half. What happened in the second half is because the offense couldn't keep them off the field. The offense could not sustain drives to allow the defense to rest. And what does that do for Georgia's offense? They can just come in and chip away. Because what does Clemson lack that everybody else in the country doesn't lack? Depth. And you know where you get depth? You get depth in the transfer portal. And that's something that Dabo doesn't dabble in. And it shows. You're going to get pushback and pushback and pushback about it. And he can say what he wants about this is Clemson's identity. This is how he's going to build this team. You're going to continue to see this trend. But to me, it just comes down to the fact that Clemson's offense couldn't get it going. Klubnik was not good. They were 4 for 13 on third down. They had a total of 188 yards. They didn't run for more than 50 yards. And Georgia gave you every opportunity in the world to be in this game. Georgia had 7 penalties for 70 yards. So it's not like Georgia just bullied you into submission. You just couldn't take advantage of the opportunities you were given on offense. The defense played good enough to keep you in it in the first half.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of my thing. I think Clemson defensively is still one of the best teams that you're going to find. Even, now 3 years removed from Brent Venables and all that, they probably don't have quite as caliber of the players as they had during those national championship runs, but that's still, I would say, a top 10, top 15 defense probably in the country. However, like you said, when your offense is doing you no favors by 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, like you can only withstand that for so long. You can only bend without breaking. And, it was 13-3. And then early in the third, or it was 6-0. And early in the third quarter, Georgia scored that touchdown to go up 13-0. And you're like, this game's over. Like, It's over. I don't think Clemson, going into it, I thought Clemson might score 10 or 17. But after the first half, it's like, no, Clemson is not scoring more than 10 points. It's not going to happen unless they get a defensive touchdown, which didn't happen. So, yeah, Clemson has issues, man. Dabo and the portal, and, everybody likes to poke fun at Dabo because of his, how he kind of views things, and he just does it a little bit different. And we talked about it yesterday. The parallel that we talked about, Joel Klatt drew between Clemson and like the Mac Brown era at Texas. I'm not going to explain all that. If you want to go listen to that podcast, you can. Thought it was pretty spot on. This is a program that's had 2 generational quarterbacks that won national championships. And since they've been gone, Trevor Lawrence being the last, they just have missed at quarterback, I think. And, maybe that's a unfair thing to say about Klubnik because he doesn't really have the guys around him that Deshaun and Trevor Lawrence had, but DJU was not very good. Still not very good, obviously. And Klubnik just kind of seems like a guy. Like he's not going to make the incredible plays. He's not a like supreme arm talent. You know, he's kind of just a guy. Um, so yeah, Clemson has issues, Dabo. That I don't know. I don't know if the run that they went on, they may never see again because college football's changed so much, and Dabo just he believes what he believes, and you can't really fault the guy for it. But at the end of the day, like I said to you guys, is he holding that program back? And what he built and their ability to win national championships, which is proven, is he holding the program back by refusing to use some of the resources that are available? Because I don't even know that Clemson's doing crazy stuff with NIL, let alone the transfer portal.
No,
And so it's like you're living in this like dying era of college football that it's just not the way it is anymore. But anyway, I could rant on Clemson, Dabo. We could talk about that for probably an hour. Georgia looks really good. The Humphreys kid, the wide receiver, looks like they just cloned Lad McConkey. Carson Beck, he goes 23 of 33 for 278, a couple touchdowns. Pretty good start to what could be a Heisman campaign for him. So yeah, Georgia 1-0. Clemson lets me down again. I won't pick them the rest of the year. I'm not doing it. I refuse. I will not. I'll never pick Clemson to cover ever again against anybody. Don't care. Not doing it. Won't pick them. Georgia demolishes Clemson 34-3. They never had a chance. So this was a win for you, Dalt. Loss for me. Every one of them is a loss for me. We'll move on. Next game of the week, kind of a statement game, Dalt. We head down to Florida, and the Miami Hurricanes go into the swamp, and they put it on the Florida Gators. 41-17 is the final. Miami went in here, Dalt, as a 2.5-point road dog. And they obviously cover. They win the game outright, and this one was over pretty quick. You saw pretty early on this game was over. Cam Ward, is he the best quarterback in the country?
He's the best quarterback in the ACC by far.
Yeah.
I don't think it's even close. I think he's 1A, and then there's like a significant gap to 2. And I would be hard pressed to say that the kid from Boston College might not be. There's probably 2 in this conference. So yeah, it was over early. They jump out to the 17-3 lead. Montrell Johnson breaks off that huge run, and you think, okay, Florida's going to settle in. Graham Mertz is going to figure it out. And then here comes Miami right back down the field to stretch it to 14 points before the half. And then they open up the second half to stretch it to 21. And at this moment, it's just like everybody wants Miami not to be good, because it's been kind of nice for the country. Everybody outside of the state of Florida in recruiting the state of Florida, there's some great talent coming out of Florida, and people have been able to go in and pluck them out because Florida's had good years. Florida State had good years in the early 2010s. Miami has been bad since 2001, since they won it all. But Miami looks like they're going to be a good team in the ACC, probably going to walk to the championship with who they play. And I don't necessarily know that this is just such a great testament of how good Miami is, as much as it is maybe we just gave Florida too much credit for having a talented roster. Maybe we thought Graham Mertz was going to be better than what he is. Maybe he is who they say he is, and he's not who we think he is. So, 91 yards on 20 passes, that ain't going to cut it. You're not going to win games like that. So, the biggest deal is Florida might be bad, and Miami might be really, really good, but it might be a combination of Florida is just this bad, Miami is just a decent team or a good team, not a great team.
Yeah. I think a lot of the hype, there wasn't hype on Florida, but a lot of people thought that, this is a talented team that they could, maybe punch above their weight a little bit because of the roster. And it's year 3 under Billy Napier. But that was definitely not the case in this game. And this is a game that I know I had them winning. I think you had Florida winning this game.
Yep.
As we talked about that path for them to get to 5 or 6 wins. This is a team that's probably not going to be favored in a single game going the rest of the year, except for their game this week against Samford. Florida looked horrible, and frankly, not to take away from Miami, but I'm not sure Billy Napier makes it halfway through the season at this rate. I mean, he's did you see his press conference where he's talking about trying to get his team to listen to him and not worry about outside noise and what, somebody in Central Florida, wherever, in their basement is saying online. And so it's like, okay, dude, like you just got dog walked by Miami, and you're going to sit here and talk about like your players are too worried about these people on social media or the internet talking about them. Like,
Sounds like he's more worried about it.
exactly. And it's like, this is your fault. Like you're the tip of the spear here. You're the one that was supposedly going to turn this program around coming in from Louisiana, and you just haven't. You just haven't. So at this point, if I'm Florida, if I'm Billy Napier, I'm probably telling Graham Mertz, like, hey, man, sorry. We're going to go with
play the Lagway kid.
Yeah, we're going with DJ. Like, we're going to let him play, try to keep him here, and maybe save my job. Like, obviously, you don't say that to a player, but maybe save his job and get into another year with a more talented quarterback. But back to Miami. With what we've seen out of the ACC, Dalt, I think there's a pretty clear path here for them to 12-0, and it's looking somewhat likely. They don't play Clemson, who I know we just talked about. Even with that loss to Georgia, I still think Clemson's probably one of the better teams in this conference. But Florida State's 0-2 now. That's just a dumpster fire. Virginia Tech, who a lot of people like, they go on the road and get beat by Vanderbilt.
Not a lot of people.
Well,
you,
there's a lot of people. A lot of people across national media they have Virginia Tech like they had them as like a sleeper team in the ACC. But they get beat by Vanderbilt, not good. So yeah, I think there's a clear path here for Miami to 12-0, and they do go to Georgia Tech, who looked pretty good in week 0. We'll see. But yeah, Cam Ward, just like I talked about Carson Beck, off to a pretty good start for the old Heisman campaign, possible ACC championship. Miami, I'm not going to say Miami's back. That phrase is overplayed and overdone. I'm not going to go there.
It's been coined. Leave it alone.
Yeah, so they look good though. So Miami covers. We both took Florida in this game, so we both lose here. We'll move on. Our 4th game of the weekend, the University of Southern California Trojans, Dalt. They go to Las Vegas and they hand Brian Kelly and the LSU Tigers, Brian Kelly for a 3rd straight year, LSU for a 5th straight year, an opening season loss. They go in there and defeat them 27-20, and they cover the 4.5 point spread as underdogs. What did you think of this one? This was a standalone Sunday night game, so pretty much everybody, you got to kind of focus all your attention on this one and watch it. What stood out to you about this game, Dalton?
2 really, really good quarterbacks going at it. I know that Brian Kelly come out and kind of hit his quarterback with a stray in his post-game press conference, saying that Miller Moss outplayed Nussmeier. But I mean, he didn't outplay him by that much. I mean, both of these teams kind of gave up a lot of yards. I know we talk about how much improved both the defenses kind of looked. And I know you say, well, USC gave up 421 yards and LSU gave up 450 total yards. How are these defenses improved? These are really good offenses. I mean, they're both really good. Lincoln Riley, we know, is always going to have a really good offense. The weapons he has at receiver is maybe the best weapons group he's had in some time. So I think the biggest deal is they didn't really get into too much trouble defensively. Both teams tackled pretty good, and what it really come down to was USC made the explosive plays. Um, if you would have told me that USC would have held LSU to 5 for 13 on third down, I would have told you were crazy, and I would have said that Nussmeier played terrible and couldn't hit open receivers. But that wasn't the case. USC, under their new defensive coordinator, has a here we come, hair on fire, blitz you, play zero man coverage. Like it's us versus the world. We're gonna make you get it out quick and tackle. And if you're saying that about a Lincoln Riley defense, you're like, well, they're gonna score 100 because Lincoln Riley defenses don't tackle. USC
Right.
tackled very, very well in this game. So it coming down to Miller Moss played great. Miller Moss is just here it comes again. Lincoln Riley has another great quarterback that can run his system to a T. And all the hype they've talked about how much they love him at USC, it's there. It's fitting. I mean, he commanded the offense. He threw the ball where it needed to go. He put it in tight windows, and his receivers helped him out and made great catches. The 2 one-handed catches in that
Yeah.
game were unreal.
Yeah.
But what it really come down to was LSU had a 4-point lead with 8 minutes left. A great opportunity to go score, make it an 11-point game, go kick a field goal, make it a touchdown game, and they just relaxed. They just got complacent, and here it comes again. Like, how is Brian Kelly going to put this on his players to win games when you can't even keep your kids focused to go put somebody away when you have them in a position to put them away?
Yeah.
And here we are again. Same thing's happened the last 2 years under them. It's happened the last
Well,
however many years for LSU.
yeah, I mean, and that was kind of one of my key takeaways from this was, you see Brian Kelly in the post game and he's banging on his table at the press conference, which has become it's become a great meme already. I love it. But yeah, he's talking about, we've got guys on the sideline who, we think this game's won, and it's like, well, you're coaching like it's won. Like you're coaching more so like not to lose than you are to win when you have a 4-point lead. Like getting, like you said, being complacent. Uh, and I hate that. But there are several coaches across the country, Dalt, that I'm not high on, and Brian Kelly's one of them. I think he's a good coach. I don't think he's a great coach. I think he lacks a little bit of control over his team, and it kind of shows with his frustration in the post game. Again, I'm not inside those walls, so I don't know that for a fact, but that's kind of what it seems like from the outside looking in. And LSU, man, they looked really good. Like you said, the Nussmeier kid, he was really good. The Lacey kid, wide receiver, outside of acting completely ignorant when he scores a touchdown, like, he's pretty good. You got to, I'm all for celebrating, but you got to know your limits, man. Like you can't get a penalty thrown on you celebrating a touchdown. Like just go back to the sideline. Let's act like we've been here before.
Well, especially against USC with who they have returning kicks.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Like you got to realize how that's going to affect your team long term. But moving back to USC, you talk about Miller Moss, and I said this, Dalt, that a lot of people think that he may be a better fit for Lincoln Riley and USC than a guy like Caleb Williams, not because he's more talented. That's not the case at all, but simply because he's going to run that system that Lincoln Riley runs to a T and not do the improv stuff on the fly in the middle of games like Caleb Williams did, because as we know, like Caleb, he would do his thing and create and, get off script quite a bit. And a lot of people think that Miller Moss may be a better fit because kind of more of like, you talk about Lincoln Riley offense is kind of more of the Baker Mayfield type. Like he's going to run it to a T. He knows the offense like the back of his hand. He's going to get it to the guys that are open and make this offense perform at the highest level that it can perform. And you're right, they're loaded at wide receiver with the Hudson kid and Makai Lemon, and obviously the Branch kid's unbelievable. So, but yeah, the biggest takeaway for me, USC's defense, they look a lot better. I think time will still tell on that. I don't think you can say after one game that they've got it all figured out and that they're great, but they looked a lot better. You go back to LSU and discipline, 10 penalties for 100 yards, Dalt. I mean, that it's just it, I don't know. USC wins the game. I think you took USC, correct?
Yep.
I took LSU. I realized looking back at my picks, Dalt, I was incredibly biased towards the SEC, and I didn't mean to be that way, but like I took Florida, I took LSU, I took A&M. I don't know why I did this, but I did. But USC wins this game 27-20. Massive, and maybe one of the biggest wins of Lincoln Riley's career as a head coach. It's got to be up there, especially at USC. Kind of a statement win for him with all the talk before the game and in the offseason about him trying to dodge this game and LSU and the SEC, and you go in there and win the game. So massive win for USC. They look like a contender in the Big Ten for sure. So speaking of A&M, we'll move on to our final game that we picked, Dalt. That was our game of the week down in College Station, and once again, I took A&M. Like I said, you took Notre Dame here. And the Fighting Irish, they go into College Station at Kyle Field, and they defeat the Texas A&M Aggies 23-13. They cover the 3-point spread as underdogs on the road. Connor Wegman, he's bad. He might be
Not
bad.
good.
He might be bad. What'd you think here, Dalt?
This was kind of the defensive slugfest we thought it was going to be. We really thought that, Texas A&M's defensive line was going to dictate a lot of this game against this Notre Dame inexperienced offensive line. But this offensive line got better as the game went on. They really imposed their will in the second half. I mean, they almost rushed for 200 yards. I know you don't throw it for a whole lot, but Riley Leonard's not a guy that's going to just come and air you out. We talked about that. We talked about how him throwing the ball past 10, 15, 20 yards is probably not going to happen a lot, but Notre Dame's got a really good defense. And I know we talk about how bad Weigman was. Notre Dame has a really good defense and really made them abandon the pass game in this. Notre Dame goes 2 for 12 on third downs. Texas A&M's not much better at 4 for 13. 0 for 2 on fourth downs for Texas A&M. Notre Dame should be 2 for 2 on fourth downs, but they got hosed on a fourth down spot in this game. But yeah, Weigman goes 12 for 30 for 100 yards. That's not going to win games against any Power 5 team.
Well, you add in 2 interceptions and it's even worse.
Oh, yeah. I mean, 3.3 yards per pass.
Not great.
Yeah, that's terrible. Notre Dame, once again, I mean, Notre Dame wasn't great. Penalty-wise, they 11 penalties for 100 yards. Texas A&M just couldn't take advantage of it. Weigman played bad. And,
Yep.
I know everybody's seen the viral video of him walking off the field throwing up. like
It's never a good sign.
Man, you gotta know, like, the camera's on you. Like, hide that. Get to the sideline with that. Don't just let it loose down the front of your jersey. It looks terrible, especially when you're playing bad. Like, moments too big, piss down your leg. Just summed up to a little 2-second clip of you puking down the front of your jersey. No, Texas A&M's offense is. Colin Klein's not the answer. Maybe we're a little harsh on Jimbo, but Colin Klein wasn't the answer. I know they rushed for almost 150, but you lose this game by 10. Your quarterback can't be a gamer and go keep you in it. And then Notre Dame just wears on you. They wear on you. They run the ball. They pop a big run for a touchdown. And then you bring in the fact that Riley Leonard's going to run quarterback power. to a T because he loves it. He's a gamer. That's the difference. That was the difference in this game. Riley Leonard's the gamer. Connor Weigman was not good. And Texas A&M fans are backpedaling
Uh,
on this Weigman for Heisman
yeah.
moments. Like they're calling,
Well,
they're saying he was drunk and high. Like it's anarchy in
we
College Station right
we've
now.
reached DEFCON 1 or 5, whichever one's the worst. I don't know. I think DEFCON 1's the worst. But yeah, Weigman did not look good. Looked a little overwhelmed. Moment, like you said, moment too big. He's literally throwing up on himself. You talk about Colin Klein. I don't think you can quite make the conclusion that he's not the guy as far as OC. It's a 1 game sample size, and Notre Dame, that defense looked they looked about as good as anybody this weekend. Against, I'm not going to say A&M's not a high-powered offense, but they've got guys at A&M. Like they've got talented players, and Notre Dame looked very good. I think. Are you feeling better about having Notre Dame in your playoff now, Dalt? You
Oh yeah.
made that
Oh,
change
it's
late.
cakewalk.
I have the minute as well. I am almost Dalt, after what I saw 1 week. I'm almost ready to say that Notre Dame might go 12-0 and be the 5 seed in the playoff.
I mean,
I
the schedule is easy. I mean, you
I
finish the year
mean
at USC. I mean,
USC, and then
that may be a classic game.
a lot of people had Florida State circled in the middle of the year, but they're probably going to annihilate Florida State.
Yeah, right.
Florida State, we're not going to talk about them today. We could, but we're not going to. We want people to listen to this podcast, so we're not going to talk about Florida State. But yeah, I thought Notre Dame looked good, man. Riley Leonard, like you said, the guy's a gamer. For being a nerdy kid that went to Duke, like the guy can absolutely play. And he made the plays that he needed to make for his team to win this game, unlike the Weigman kid, and that was kind of the difference. I thought A&M looked pretty good defensively, and like you said, Notre Dame 2 for 12 on third down. Like A&M's defense did what they. I mean, you give up 23 points, like you think in 2024 you should have a chance to win that game, but you can't when you score 13.
No.
Offense got to be better. Don't know if Weigman's the answer. Again, like you said with Klein, I think he'll be okay, but it was not a good opening debut for him either. So yeah, Notre Dame wins this game, Dalt. They cover.
Don't worry, they play McNeese this week. They'll beat the hell out of McNeese, and then it's right back on. Oh, it's just he had one bad game.
We're back.
We're making the playoffs. It's the A&M way.
So that rounds out our picks. We'll say BP, he went 5-1 with his super
dog hit, didn't it?
I think so, yeah.
North Dakota and Iowa State.
So I went, like I said, I went 0-6. My super dog, just to touch on him real quick, my super dog was Colorado State against your Texas Longhorns. They severely disappointed me. Would have never picked them to win that game, but I thought that they would at least have a pulse against Texas, and they didn't.
They got the shit beat out of them.
Yeah, it was bad. That was bad. Texas looked good. Your Longhorns looked good for sure. And then you had Fresno State at -21, and they got beat by 20.
20. Yep.
So
they cover.
So they cover just barely. So that was a win for you. So if with that rounds out our picks, Dalt. So you go 4-2 with Superdog. So 3-2 as far as your regular picks. I go 0-5, 0-6 with my Superdog. We will move in, if you're ready, to our week 2 picks. We'll talk about these games, preview them quickly, and we'll make our 5 picks. Like I said, we've got a pretty good slate this weekend. Not quite as good as week 1, but it is good. And we're going to start right here in Oklahoma, Dalt. Right here in our backyard, the Arkansas Razorbacks coming over to Stillwater to take on the Oklahoma State Cowboys. That's a Saturday at 11 a.m. there at Boone Pickens. Oklahoma State, when I made the episode, they come in here as a 7.5-point home favorite. Over-under set at 60.5. So we are thinking there's going to be some points scored, which after the week 1 performances, I think that's pretty fair. Arkansas looked pretty good. I know it was Pine Bluff, who might be the worst football team assembled in the country, but they look pretty good. The green kid looked athletic, looked like a playmaker. And then Oklahoma State, man, They looked good against FCS two-time defending national champion South Dakota State. They win that game 44 to like 20, I think was the final, something like that. So
Yep.
win it by 3 plus touchdowns. They looked really good. Ollie Gordon looked really good. Had a couple touchdowns. So early thoughts here, Dalt. Oklahoma State minus 7.5. What are we thinking?
What scares me about this game is Oklahoma State's secondary. Outside of Kobe Black, Kobe Black is a great corner, and he's going to do his job. But the rest of the secondary get a little lost, and Arkansas looked explosive enough to take advantage of that. We talked about the Taylor Green kid, just absolutely lit Pine Bluff on fire. It's so hard to say what this Arkansas team is going to be this season. I mean, you play Pine Bluff to start the year. Like the deal with Pine Bluff is you don't stop there to get fuel. Like you just keep driving and you hope you don't run out of gas to the next stop.
Not yeah.
But Oklahoma State played a very good team that I think would beat Pine Bluff the same way Arkansas beat Pine Bluff, and they beat them by 3 scores. I think the defense is good in the front. I think the offensive line is going to give Ollie Gordon some room to run, and we talked about it in the beginning of the year. OSU might have the best receiving core in the Big 12.
Yep.
Like as a whole, I know Arizona's got the McMillan kid who absolutely went off this weekend. I know Colorado's got Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn. But as a total overall group, like top to bottom, I think Oklahoma State might have the best receiving core in the country. As long as Bowman can take care of the football, which I think he will, because I think Oklahoma State is going to have a pretty good time running the football. Like they're not going to go away from it. But I like Oklahoma State here minus 7.5. I just like the experience that Oklahoma State has. I like them at home. I mean, Stillwater. We joke with Stillwater only holding like what 55,000.
Yeah, 55, 60, I think,
somewhere in that area. Like we joke that like even after halftime it's half empty because their fans rather get down to the strip and go party than stay there and cheer. But it's a really tough place to play. So I like Oklahoma State here. I think Ollie Gordon's going to be the biggest difference. I think he gives you the ability to really keep Arkansas's explosive offense off the field. So I'm going to take Oklahoma State minus 7.5.
I'm going to agree with you. But that hook, man, it's scary because I could see Oklahoma State winning this game by a touchdown. I do think Arkansas looked really good in week 1, even with it being against basically Parkview School for the Blind. I thought the Green kid at quarterback looked like he looked really good, looked the part, like everything that you've heard coming out of there in the spring and in fall camp. The Jaquindon Jackson, the running back, he looked really good, couple touchdowns. But I just think that, with that game last week against what's a really good FCS team, an FCS team that would beat a lot of FBS teams, South Dakota State, and with how Oklahoma State handled them, I thought they'd win that game. I didn't think they'd win by as much as they did, and they look good, man. Alan Bowman took care of the football. He did what he needed to do. You look at his stat line last week: 24 of 33, 245, and a couple touchdowns. If you get that every week out of him, you're taking it to the bank. On top of 126 yards and 3 touchdowns from Ollie Gordon. Like, that's all Oklahoma State needs from Bowman. Just take care of the football. Give me about 225 to 250 through the air, maybe a couple touchdowns. Just make the third down throws that we need you to make to move the chains. We're going to give Ollie Gordon, he had almost 30 carries. Like, I think they're going to lean on him in this game. I think after last week, a lot of people like Arkansas as an upset pick in this game. And I just don't think it's going to happen. I think Oklahoma's better coach. Oklahoma State's the better coach team. I think they're probably more talented, and I think they win this game. I think they maybe win by 10, maybe 14. I like the Cowboys. I think they get it done at home in front of what should be, like you said, a really good crowd. 11 a.m. kick. That's something that they're used to there in Stillwater. I imagine there'll be a pretty good contingency for Arkansas. It's not too far of a trip from Fayetteville to Stillwater, so I'm sure they'll have a decent crowd, decent showing. But give me Oklahoma State -7.5. I agree with you, Dalt. Yeah, I like Oklahoma State -7.5. Next game, we're moving on to the Cy-Hawk, the annual Week 2 game, Dalt, between the Iowa State Cyclones. They're heading up to Iowa City to take on the Iowa Hawkeyes. This is a 2:30 afternoon kick. Iowa comes in here as a 2.5-point home favorite, and the over-under is laughable at 35.5. What do you make? What do you make of it, Dalt? I feel like every year you want to say, man, Iowa State's just better, and Iowa ends up winning. And what do you think?
Matt Campbell can't win this game.
He struggles. I think he's won it
cannot
like
win
one
this
time.
game. Twice. He's won it twice. Well, maybe once. I don't know. Going back so long, I forget how long Matt Campbell's been at Iowa State, but he's only this Iowa State team. They're so hard to judge because you just think with all the returning production they had that they were going to be good, and they come out and they look absolutely terrible against North Dakota. Not one of the states. Don't get this twisted. This is not
this
one of the
VP Superdog.
powerhouse. Yeah, this is not a powerhouse in the FCS. This is just plain old North Dakota. A lot's being made about how Iowa scored 40 on who they play, Northern Illinois.
Give me a break.
Well, yeah, tell me what that score was at halftime again. Oh yeah, 6-0. They had to score 21 in the fourth quarter. Like at that point against an FCS team, your talent's just going to take over. What scares me about trying to take Iowa State, because I like Iowa State. I think they're the better team, but I just don't trust Matt Campbell in this. Do you know what North Dakota was on third down against Iowa State?
Probably good.
11 for 20.
Yeah.
11 for 20, and they were 1 for 1 on fourth down. They almost had 300 yards of total offense, and 174 of it was on the ground. Iowa State loses their star former walk-on linebacker for a couple weeks. He's out. I like Iowa -3. I think that this is just another chalk it up to Matt Campbell to lose the Cy-Hawk Trophy. I think Iowa's going to be able to run the football on Iowa State, get it into the red area, and kick field goals. And I don't know that Iowa State's going to be able to move the ball great against this Iowa defense. Iowa's always got a good defense. Cade McNamara is not the reason that I was going to win this game. I mean, let's look at it. He hit a lineman in the back of the helmet. He hit his offensive lineman in the back of the helmet on a slant route. He hit his lineman in the back of the head.
He shouldn't have been there. He's in his way. I mean,
yeah,
it's not his fault.
Give me a break. I like Iowa -3. I think that they're going to be able to run the football and get into field goal range and probably kick about 5 of them and win this game like 15-10.
Yeah, I picked Iowa State, I think, to win this game. I might have went back and switched it. I think I did, actually. I think I did switch it back to Iowa. If this was in Ames, I think I would be a little higher on Iowa State. And I like Iowa State this year. I've got them playing in the Big 12 championship. But they just, they just can't. They struggle to win this game. Even before Matt Campbell, but Matt Campbell himself, like you said, they just have a hard time, even with the better team, finding a way to win this game. And with it being in Iowa City at Kinnick Stadium, that's a, the crowd's going to be into it. This is a big rivalry. I like Iowa -3 here as well. I do think it's going to be low scoring. And I just think Iowa's going to kind of strangle them. Even like you said, I think Iowa State's better at quarterback. I think they're better at wide receiver. I think the running back may be kind of washed. The kid at Iowa, he had a good day against Illinois State, but you don't know how good he really is. And then Iowa State's that kid there. He didn't do much against North Dakota, but a lot of people are high on him. I just give me Kirk Ferentz, give me Iowa, give me the Hawkeyes -3. I hate to do it to my Cyclones, but I'm taking Iowa -3. So we'll move on, Dalt. A what was once a major rivalry in the old Big 12, and these are now our Big 12, newly Big 12, Colorado, again, 2.0, at Nebraska, who's in the Big 10. Thought it was strange. This game is at 6:30 on NBC Saturday night. Nebraska comes in here, Dalt, as a 7-point home favorite with the over-under set at 57.5. What do you think?
This is so tough.
I feel like it is setting up for everybody to think Nebraska is just the better team, take Nebraska, and then I just feel like Colorado is going to go in there and win the game and cover. I don't know. What do you think?
So we look at how Colorado beat North Dakota State, and we think that they're going to be like, oh, they beat the FCS powerhouse. So did Oklahoma State, and they beat them by 24.
Yeah.
Colorado didn't protect Shadur all that great, where Shadur kind of got the advantage against Colorado State was Jimmy Horn and Travis Hunter are elite speed guys, elite athletes, and North Dakota State just doesn't have the elite athlete in the secondary. Does Nebraska? I don't know. I think you're going to see a better front against Nebraska on defense. A lot's being made about the Rayola kid. I thought he played good. He looked good against UTEP. Threw for a couple touchdowns. Didn't really put the ball in a lot of harm's way. My biggest thing is, can Colorado keep Shadur upright in this game? I think Nebraska got after him last year pretty bad, and they just had the Sims kid at quarterback last year, who
terrible. Couldn't catch a snap.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Literally could not catch the snap.
But I like Matt Rule in year 2. Everywhere he's been better in year 2. Everywhere. Yep. He weeds out a lot of the bad culture that he has to take over, and then he just puts his culture takes hold, and teams play better. Like he drives a really good cultured program everywhere he's been outside of Carolina. But is there really even such thing as culture in the NFL? Probably not.
Yeah.
Some guys are just great college coaches, and they need to stay in college. But that's neither here nor there. I like Nebraska. What are they? Is it just 7 or is it 7.5?
It's moved to 7.5. So we picked the Oklahoma State game on what it is now. So we can pick it at 7.5.
Okay,
since we're on here. So yeah, 7.5.
Damn it. Give me Nebraska minus 7.5. I just feel like that a lot's being made about Shadur looking great in week 1 and Travis being elite and Jimmy Horn being elite. I think them guys are going to get a lot of kind of bracketed coverage this week with guys over the top, and they're just going to let this defensive front just get after Shadur Sanders, and you got to protect him, and you got to run the football. And the biggest thing for me was last week, Shadur checked to a pass play when all they had to do was run the clock out.
Yeah, that was bad. That was really
terrible.
Poor clock management.
You can't do that. Like, Prime's got to get in his son's ass for that, because that can't happen. That is selfish football. It could have. It should have.
Yeah, very well.
That's selfish football, and you can't have that. Like, I don't care. Like Joel Klatt said, he doesn't care if there's 11 guys in the box and a guy standing on the sideline wide open. In that situation, you hand it off, you take your -1 yards, and you make them burn a timeout.
Yeah, because I mean, they would have given the ball back to North Dakota State with like maybe 10 seconds or less on the clock.
Yeah.
And instead they have
it back with a minute.
Just under a minute, and they complete a Hail Mary, but it's 5 yards short of the goal line. So yeah, that was bad, very bad from Colorado. You know, Dalt, we've been on the same page here on our picks, and I'm going to go against you. I'm going to take Colorado plus 7.5. I think that they can keep this within 7, and I love the hook. That's what I love. I don't think Nebraska is extremely more talented I do think the Rayola kid still has a little bit to work through growing pain wise. I know this game's at home, and I do like Nebraska this year, man, and I think I picked them to win this game, and I think they might win the game. I think they win the game by 7. So I love the hook, and I like Colorado plus 7.5. I think you look up in this game's like 34-27 final, something like that. 28-21. I think Nebraska's defense. I don't know how well you're going to hold down Shadur and Travis Hunter and Horn and those guys. I mean, nobody really talks about Jimmy Horn, man, but 200 yards, only one touchdown against North Dakota State, dude. When he catches the ball in space, it's pretty fun to watch. That kid can fly. So we'll see if Nebraska can contain those guys. I think you look at Travis Hunter and can they keep playing him as much as they're playing him on both sides of the ball. You have to imagine in this at this level, the body wears down a little bit more so than it would have at Jacksonville State or at Jackson State. But he did it all last year. I mean, he did get banged up and got hurt, but I don't know. There's just something inside me telling me take Colorado plus 7.5. So shockingly enough, friend of the show, Josh Duke, he'll enjoy this. Me taking Colorado plus 7.5. So enjoy that, Josh. You're welcome. I'm going to take the Buffaloes at plus 7.5, and we'll move on. We've got 2 more games here, Dalt. Tennessee against NC State, Saturday night, 6:30. Tennessee comes in here as a 7.5 point favorite, I think, unless that's changed.
It's down to 4, minus 4.
Really?
No. Hold on. No, it's up to 8. It's up to 8. I'm sorry.
8.
That's what
Okay.
it opened at 4. It's up to 8.
Okay, so Tennessee minus 8 against NC State. This game's going to be played in Charlotte, so it's a neutral site game. Should kind of be more of an advantage for NC State being in Carolina, but Tennessee fans will travel well. I imagine this will be pretty close to 50-50. NC State, Dalt, did not look great in week 1, and
Nope.
Tennessee looked really good. So what are your thoughts on this one?
NC State gave up 21 points to Western Carolina and had to score a touchdown with under 2 minutes left to push it to a 17-point win. A lot's made of Grayson McCall. I didn't think he looked great, as he should have, against a Western Carolina team that's probably not remotely close to as good as you. But you know who did look good?
Mm-hmm.
Nico looked great. Nico looked, and I know it's against Chattanooga, and you can say what you want about what Chattanooga is or what they are. Nico looked like he was playing 7-on-7.
Yep.
I mean, every throw was on the money. He was dialing it up. He stood tall in the pocket. There was no nervousness, no happy feet. He looked like the elite 5-star quarterback that everybody said he was coming out of high school. And I honestly think that Tennessee is about to run roughshod over North Carolina State. If you give up 21 points to Western Carolina, Josh Heupel in this offense is going to light you on fire.
Yeah.
And people can say it's a look ahead, whatever, but I think Nico looks great. I think that I might have slept on Tennessee a little bit too much. Like I wasn't saying that Nico was going to be as good as he was, and I know it's only one game, but he looks the part.
Here's my one caveat for this game. I think NC State's better than they played in week 1. However, they were without like their starting linebacker in that game. I think I don't remember what happened. He might have got kicked out. He might have missed half the game or something. I don't know. But if NC State, if they get him back and they can maybe stop the run early, then they may be able to keep this game close. Because Josh Heupel, a lot of people think he's just kind of a run and gun, like throw it all over the field offensive coach, but he really likes to run the ball first. And if you can hold down the rushing attack for Tennessee, I think you can hang in there. I don't necessarily think NC State's going to do that. But I do think NC State will look better than they did in week one. Um, and I still do like McCall. The Concepcion kid at wide receiver is really good, so he's going to test the what most people say is the weakest part of that Tennessee defense in the secondary and the back end. This could turn into kind of a shootout, I think. But I don't disagree with you. I think that Tennessee could go in there and dog walk NC State, and for that reason, I'm taking Tennessee -8. I think they win this game by 10 or more fairly easily. I think they're the better team. I think they're more talented. I do think NC State could keep it close, maybe in the first half, but yeah, I just for after what I saw against Western Carolina with NC State, I know you can't judge a team and their season based on week one, but Nico looked unbelievable, and I know it was against Chattanooga, who's they have no business playing Tennessee, but he looked dialed in, he looked ready, and he looked good. And I think he'll have success against NC State. I like Tennessee here -8 as well. And so with that, Dalt, we'll move into our game of the week. And we are heading up to Ann Arbor, Michigan for big noon kickoff at 11 a.m. Your Texas Longhorns are going to Michigan to take on the Wolverines. I don't know what that game has been bet to. I'm sure the line's changed since I made.
It opened at 4. It is at now 7.5.
Okay, 7.5. So it's the same. Okay, so Texas comes in here as a 7.5-point road favorite in the Big House against the Michigan Wolverines, defending national champions. I'll just ask you, Dalt, what are your thoughts? What do you think? What do you think here? What are your Longhorns going to do?
This game scares me. This is a prime rat poison game. I know you've said that, but at the same time, how do you not get up to go play the defending champs? I
Yeah.
know they looked really bad in week 1 against Fresno. I know the score doesn't look it, but the offense only scored, what was it, 23 points, and the defense had a
Yeah.
pick six to get you
Yeah.
to get to
30.
30.
Yeah.
And Fresno moved the ball decently. They didn't run the ball great. That's what kind of scares me. Texas didn't look great in the run game against Colorado State. And this is going to be an elite defensive front that they have to face this week. So we've got to get that right. It's going to be an elite secondary we're going up against. But at the same time, Michigan couldn't do anything on offense. And the old saying is, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have any.
You don't have none. Yeah.
And that's where Michigan's at. They started the what was the Warren kid?
Yeah,
And then
Davis,
they brought
I
in,
think is his name.
yeah, they brought in the Orgy kid, Alex Orgy, for some kind of packages, and he looked atrocious throwing the football. But Donovan Edwards doesn't even lead you in rushing. Like, this is the guy that y'all praised as being y'all's Heisman front runner. Y'all are going to lean on him. He somehow works his way into a college EA Sports cover athlete, and you just look bad against Fresno State, and your fans are now saying that you're going to hold Texas to 10 points. You held Fresno State to 10 points. And I'm going to tell you right now, Texas has 10 times the athletes that Fresno State has. And you may think that the King kid going for 235's scary. Quinn's twice the quarterback he is with twice the weapons. Yes, you got after him a little bit. I think Texas's offensive line is going to be better. And if you play off of these receivers to let your pass rush run, Sark will screen the hell out of you. And guess what? I think that Texas is going to go into Ann Arbor and win this game going away. I think this is going to be kind of like a big eye opener for what returning production does for you. Michigan lost everybody. The offensive line couldn't get a push against Fresno State. And you're going to try to convince me that Texas doesn't have a better defensive line. I know Texas gave up over 100 yards to Colorado State, but we were also trying to stop what people are saying is a first-round draft pick wide receiver. So Texas played nickel like 95% of the game in bracket coverage, Torrey Horton. So we were giving you the run to stop him. Now you're not going to get that. You're going to get a heavy dose of 4-3, 3-4, 8-9 guys in the box against Michigan. So give me my Longhorns minus 7.5.
This is tough for me. Not. I don't know. I want to take. I actually think Texas is much better right now. I think you're better at quarterback. You're better at wide receiver. You're better at offensive line. I think Michigan's defense is probably better than Texas's as a whole. The defensive front for Michigan is pretty serious, and the back end's just as good with Will Johnson. Um, I don't know. I think there's a path for Michigan to win this game, but I just don't think it's going to happen. Like if they control time of possession and run the football, I think they could win this game. But I just don't. With what Texas showed me against a pretty good Colorado State offense, is that they're pretty good defensively again. Even with losing some of those guys, I think you've cleaned up on the back end a little bit in the secondary, and I like Texas, Dalt. I like Texas minus 7.5. I think you guys go in there. I think you win this game by at least 10. I could see, like a 28-13 type of game, something like that. I don't think there's going to be a ton of points scored. Maybe 28-17, something like that. I think it's going to be relatively close, but I like Texas. I just think Texas is the better team. I think Sark's going to have a pretty good plan, pretty good script to go off of. He always does in those big games. And yeah, I like Texas here. As much as it pains me, as usual, to pick Texas, I'm taking Texas minus 7.5. I think it's just too much for Michigan. I think Michigan's not as good as what a lot of people think, and I think it's showing with what they've had to replace. So, give me the Longhorns minus 7.5. So, real quick, Dalt, to recap our picks, we both like Oklahoma State minus 7.5. We both like Iowa minus 3. You like Nebraska minus 7.5. I like Colorado plus 7.5. We both like Tennessee minus 8, and we both like Texas minus 7.5. So those are our week 2 picks. And do you have a super dog?
I do. I'm a little torn between the two that I want to pick.
Okay.
I'm a little torn because both of these teams that I'm picking against on my super dog looked atrocious in week 1.
All right.
One of these teams is a really good team. Like I think that they have one of the best running backs in the country, but I just don't think Oregon's going to look that bad again. So I'm going to take App State versus Clemson minus 17.
I hate you. That was going to be mine. Okay. I'll give it to you. Man. Do I want to do this, Dalt? Do I want to go down this road? I think I kind of do. I don't think Houston's going to look as bad in week 2.
Oh, Bub, no.
You think that you think OU covers minus 30? You think so? Is Houston that bad?
Houston's that bad.
Okay.
I think that's pretty chalk. I think you got a better chance at Bowling Green at minus 35 against Penn State than you do Houston versus Oklahoma.
I'm trying to look here. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go Boise State plus 19.5. I thought Boise State looked really good. The running back looked incredible. Oregon, I like you said, I don't think there's probably any way they look as bad 2 weeks in a row, but they're playing a better team. Like Boise State's better than Idaho.
Oh, they look 10 times better.
Like way better. So yeah, I'm going to take Boise State plus 19.5 for my super dog. And so for that, Dalt, we'll move in. We got 3 more categories here we're going to pick before we get out of here real quick. We got a bold prediction. We got a least surprising outcome. Could be least surprising, could be anything. Covers the spread, the over under, I mean, the winner, loser, and then I want you to tell me one sneaky good game that nobody's talking about that you think could be good. Do you have a bold prediction?
My bold prediction is that. Hold on, I just had it. Is that Baylor upsets Utah this week?
Okay. Okay. Mine, I'm going to go over to a little ACC Big 12 action, Dalt. I'm taking the BYU Cougars to upset your SMU Mustangs in Dallas. I I don't know why I just saw that game. I thought, why not? I think BYU. Give me BYU to beat the Pony Express. Okay, you got a least surprising outcome for week 2. Like I said, it can be anything. Could be a final in the game. Could be
The least
whatever.
surprising outcome for me is going to be when Alabama just runs a roughshod over South Florida again this weekend. And everybody talks about that. What was it, like 20-3 win they had last year over them, or it
Yeah.
might have even been closer than that. But I think that Alabama is going to just demolish South Florida, and they're going to cover this minus 31, and they'll probably hit the 63.5 over by themselves.
Okay. My least surprising outcome is the under hits in the Iowa State game. 35.5.
Might as well chalk that one up.
That's going to be my least surprising outcome, and then I'll throw it right back to you, Dalt. You got a sneaky good game. If you don't, I do. So if you need to think about it a little.
I think Kansas versus Illinois is going to be a sneaky good game.
Okay. Okay. I'm actually going to stay in the Sunflower State, Kansas State, Tulane. I think a lot of people have written Tulane off since Willie Fritz left, but they got the Summerall guy from Troy. And I think they brought in a quarterback that's pretty good. I think Tulane's still a pretty good team. Kansas State's a 10-point favorite. And that game is at Tulane. And Tulane beat Kansas State. What was that, 2-3 years ago? In Manhattan. That's an 11 a.m. kick on ESPN. I think you might tune in about 1:30, and you might have a ball game. They're in where's that? Where's Tulane? Is it in New Orleans? Or is it
somewhere in I think it is in New Orleans.
I think it's in New Orleans.
Yeah. It's somewhere down in the bottom of the boot.
Yeah. So yeah, that is my that's my one sneaky good game. So with that, Dalt, we gave our picks. We recapped week 1. We did it all, and we got another exciting week of college football here to attend to. Looking forward to it. We got some good game. I know it's a massive weekend for you, obviously, with that Texas-Michigan game. Do you have anything else you want to touch on across college football before we get out of here? Anything that struck your attention in week 1? Anything out of the ordinary? I don't guess that I do, but I just thought I'd ask.
No, nothing just stood out to me this weekend.
All righty. Well, in that case, that's our week 2 preview, week 1 recap, and like I said, looking forward to some good games. And if you don't have anything else, Dalt, we will get out of here. We'll see you guys in a week to recap these games, and we'll preview week 3 like we do. So with that, we're out.
Don't forget to cover the flats.